What's up, everybody? Welcome back. I'm John Levesque, and I am here today with my guest, Django Long. Django, how you doing, buddy?
I'm fine. We're holding up, staying at home, of course, staying strong, but I can't complain. So
Good,
it's good.
good. You got plenty of toilet paper.
Definitely.
Okay, good, good.
And there's always like newspapers, right? So there's
Hey,
always a
worst
backup plan.
comes to worst. Awesome. Well, for those of you that don't know Django, Django works for InSpark in the Netherlands. I had the awesome honor to go and tour their office and hang out with them and talk RPA and Power Platform this year. It was an awesome time. They were very, very gracious hosts. So thank you for that, Django. Django here put in a session for the Power Platform Online Conference. We all know there was like 180 sessions submitted and very few chosen, and this year his didn't get picked. But the beauty to that is that's what led us here today. I went to Django and I said, Django, I still want you to be able to do your session. Would you come and do it with me on the channel? And graciously, he accepted. And so, Django, enough of me talking now. Why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, tell people who you are and what you do, and go ahead and take it away, my friend.
Sure. Thanks, John. Thanks a lot. So I'm Django. I live in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, and I work with the Power Platform since the beginning, since Power Apps was supposed to be the InfoPath replacer.
Yeah.
I would say I'm like a citizen developer. I don't know any code. I can barely spell HTML or CSS, but I'm going to show you some examples that even a citizen developer like me and you will be able to use Power Automate and do some automation from maybe even a developer point of view, but without the low code, no code.
Right on. Okay. And so then that leads us to, what are you going to teach us today?
So the basics is I want to show you a real simple flow, which is easily to maintain, where you extract data from an email and do whatever you want with it, like you do within any other Power Automate flow.
Sweet. Okay, this is going to be good. I get a lot of people that ask me for this very thing. So this is timely. Okay, awesome. Well, then why don't you go ahead, pull up your screen and take
Sure.
it away, my friend.
So this is an example that I have where, for example, with one of our customers, there's like a front end application where data is gathered and you just want to get that data within your internal company and you want to do whatever you want to do with it. You want to
Yep.
create a SharePoint list item, you want to create the Power Platform entity record, or you just want to send an email to a specific group of people. You just have that single point of entry. In this example is like an email going to a
Okay.
shared mailbox or a personal mailbox.
Cool.
And the flow picks up this data and then you extract the data from it. And what I often see people doing in Power Automate is they create like complex nested conditions, if this,
Yeah.
then that, or a lot of substring formulas.
Yes.
Um, and the way I want to show you is that even if this consistent data, it changes, you want to add a property or remove a property, usually you would be at the risk to have the Power Automate flow break, right? With a null failure or some kind of error. And I want to show you the way that using a JSON array, so don't be scared, JSON, but I'm going to show you the basics. And if you use that JSON array, you can have like a flexible flow, which is very basic, simple.
Cool. And reusable too, probably.
Yes, definitely. You can copy
Awesome.
paste
Very
everything
cool.
with it.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
Let's see it.
sure. So the basic flow I'm going to show you here in edit mode is, we all know this trigger, right? The version 3, which has been released when a new email arrives. And I would recommend to have like extra filters so you don't get everything done on all emails. But
Yep.
for now, I'm just going to have it filterless to show you as a demo.
Okay.
What I always do in my flows is I create a lot of compose actions just to double check. So I've added these compose actions for you to see what actually happens. But when you see a compose action within your flow, at the end of your flow, when it's working, if you confirm, just remove the compose actions and you'll be fine. I've also added the HTML to text. It's a preview, very cool. So what I do here is I just compose to check who sent this email, and you can also see in the triggering action, right?
Yep.
What I then do is I put the body of the email and convert it to text, just to strip it from any nonsense. It's not required, but I always recommend it because keep your data clean. Garbage in, garbage out, right? So what I then do is I put this output from the HTML to text, the very clean text, in a compose just to check how's my output,
Okay.
just to be sure.
Yep.
Then what I do is I use this compose actions and I say, this is the key value separator that I use. So let me just go back a bit, right? Because this is my output. And within this output, I have this separator. It's just the
Got it.
two pipelines behind each key, two pipelines in front and at the end, and the same for the value.
Got it. Okay.
And this is just, I've added it in a compose action just to keep it again configurable. So let's say that your data doesn't have the pipelines, but like a double dash, which I do not recommend because sometimes you see double dashes in text. You don't
Yeah.
want to get confused. So I often do pipelines or front slashes, backslashes, and I do both. I do a double character. So this is something that you want to get in line with the front end, right? That
Yep.
just make sure that your output is entwined with each other.
This is good.
Okay.
Informing the flow of how we're gonna do things, how we want the data to come in. And so this is good. I'm
Yes.
with you.
Okay, cool. So then we're gonna create like an array, and an array is like um, a set of objects, and every object within that array, within that set, has its properties. So let's, for example, I'm going to show you, and not everything is needed for my concept, but I want to show you just because we can use it for clarification.
Okay.
So this is like an array. And what you can see is that every array has three properties. It has an index, a key to find, and the value found, which I'm going to show you that we don't need this later, but just for clarification. And these three properties, this one is the one that's key to find. As you can see, the properties that I want from my input, if I go back to the email again, here, these are the properties that I want to find. So every email gets a user ID, a name, a telephone, or not, if it's blank, an email, a department, etc. And if I put those keys into an array, like this, we can apply a to each loop on that array. And an apply to each loop just says all things within this loop. I'm just going to minimize it for now. All things within this loop have to be done on all these objects within my array. So I have 7 objects in my array. So when this flow is going to run, it's going to perform all actions within this apply to each loop 7 times.
Yep. And so just to simplify that, an array is a list of items that might have sublist of characteristics. And then a loop is a set of actions that run over each of those items. And so just to give you some clarifying language on that, I think that's important to know the difference between those two because they you can get them confused.
Definitely. And the why I added this array index is that an array indexes all items within the array. So every object gets like a unique identifier within that array. And I've added this numbering to make sure that you understand that the first item within an array does not have number 1, it has number 0. So I just added this for clarification that
Great tip.
later on, if you want to get a number 6 or 5, you need to have the right number. Okay, so another one, and I'm going to show you later on when we use it in the loop. This is the basics that you need. So you create an array, you put your objects within it and just make sure that you have like a key that you want to find, and then you can loop through all items. And what I'm going to do in that loop, I'm going to get back to these variables later, is I'm going to check, and this is a compose action, just again to check. I'm going to create a key that I want to find. And within that key that I want to find, I'm going to use, yeah, go back. Let me show you here. This is the preview. I don't know if you're using it already.
Yeah,
Do
so
not.
I've shown this in a lot of videos lately. I've been talking a
Okay.
lot about this. Yep.
Yeah, it's a big improvement. I like it a
Oh,
lot.
it's so much
Uh,
better. Yeah,
uh,
huge shout out to the team.
Definitely. Okay, so I'm gonna hover over it to show you the formula. I have a blog post about it. I'm gonna share it, and all the expressions you can find in that blog post also. So bear with me for now.
Awesome.
What this does, and you see in the formula, it goes through the apply to each loop in every item in the array. And what I'm gonna need in this compose action, I'm gonna get the key that I wanna find, and I'm gonna put behind it the key value separator, right? You see here, the key value separator, I'm gonna put it behind, because when we look at the structure of our data, you see that this is the key that we wanna find, and it's always followed by a double set of the key value separator. You know, the
Yep.
compose that we created earlier?
Yep.
Here,
Okay. Cool.
this one. Okay, so this is just to show you that we're going to use this one to get our value. So we've created a key, now we're going to get our value. And as a result, this is a formula. I was scary for this formula at first, but
So I'm not sure. It's not. I'm not seeing the hover. It's not popping up for me.
okay, I'm gonna click on it, and then you can see
There
the
we
new
go.
interface,
Now we see it.
and it has a lot of expressions. But
It
what it
does.
does, it does basically say, hey, I'm gonna look for, I did it again. I'm gonna look for this string in my text. So then I know where to look.
Got it.
That's what it does.
Yep. You're
And
basically
then,
creating a certain parse. You want it to parse and find that one thing.
yes, definitely.
Awesome.
So looking at the parse, it just says, hey, I'm gonna look for this one. And then, because this is the same character from the key value separator, I'm gonna get all text until I find the next key value separator. So the
Mm,
output of that formula will be this text for object one, this text for object two, etc.
nice.
Okay.
So neat. I love this. This is so creative.
Okay. So the key thing for the next, because I want to show possibilities. With this output, you want to get it outside the apply to each loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because even though it's mostly useful what it does, but when you reference a property which belongs to an apply to each loop, the Power Automate functionality automatically places it between an apply to each loop.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to use the properties within this apply to each loop outside the apply to each loop. So we, for instance, can put it in the SharePoint list item, or
Yep.
we can send an email for it. So the way we can go about that is we can use like an object, or we can create a second array. I'm going to show you both options.
Okay.
Because I use variables in this scenario, because when you use an apply to each loop, it's best to create a variable because you want to append new values to that variable, so you get one neat package of a new um, data. Okay, so this is like a variable that I create the output, and it's type array, and I've created a variable, the object output, and it's the type of object.
Yep. And so what he's done here with these initialized variables is he's basically set down an empty box. He's saying there's going to
Yes.
be this thing here called object output values only and array output. I'm just setting up these boxes right now. And so that's kind
Yes.
of how you can understand what variables do in the initialized stage.
Yes. And what we're going to do in the apply to each loop is we're going to fill that box with the properties that we want to use outside the apply to each loop.
Awesome.
Yes. So it's very simple. I'm going to say simple again, but this is a pretty basic. That's why I've stripped. I've because you can do all of this in one formula, right? But I want to show you that first we're going to create the thing that we want to find. Then we're going to get the output, and then I'm going to use that output in the box that we want to use.
Nice. I like that. I like how you
So,
broke that down. That makes it much simpler to understand.
yeah, cool. So the formula, the expression for this one, I'm going to click on it again here. It's the add property function. So be sure to check on it if you don't understand completely, but what it does, it adds the property that we found to the variable that we created in the initialized stage that John explained, and we're going to get the data that we want using the output from the compose action above.
Nice. Okay,
And,
cool.
and because this is an object, again, looking at the array, also an object has the same kind of logic. Sorry for my scrolling here. Remember the array that we created, this one has 7 objects in it, and an object has properties, and every property has like a key and a value.
Yep.
Just like we have in our email, a key and a value. So the next thing that we can do, looking at the object property, when we add the property, we just put that variable and put the outputs of this compose action and set it to this object variable. And then it puts this, we call it the object box, and it puts all the properties that we found in that box, and then we can reference that box outside the applied reach loop.
Perfect. Love it.
Okay, so this is the object way, and the other way is the array way. And the array way does exactly the same thing. You do the add property, and then you append it to an array. Okay. So here you use the set variable within the object, but within the array, you append it to an array. You just add the extra property to the box.
Which would you prefer? Like if you're building this for you, which way are you going to go?
The object. I like the object more because the expression to reference properties of an object is simpler than when you want to reference an array.
Yes.
Because you can reference an array only using, and that's why I wanted to clarify, you can reference properties within an array and items within an array only by using the index that it has. But with an object, we can reference the value that we want.
Okay, cool. Got it. That's helpful.
Okay. Yes. So just when we look at the output, so these are some checks for me that I'm going to show from, hey, what's the output from my array? What's the output from my object? And then I'm going to show you later in the demo. But for now, the last thing that I want to show is when you want to use the data from the array, you can just use the variable formula. And this is the integer index that you want to use. And then you get the value that you added.
Nice.
But looking at the object, the expression is more simple, like this with the user ID formula. You get the outputs of the compose action, and then you just reference the user ID within the expression. Is the pop-up showing with you guys?
It's not showing, no.
No. Let me just copy paste. This is also a tip from one Power Automate user to another. I just copy paste the expression and I paste it here.
There you go.
And everything without these prefixes, this is like your expression that you can use.
Okay,
so
cool.
It gets the outputs from this action, from the object output, and you can reference the object also directly, and then it gets the email property of that object.
You know what I like about this is like how many little handy tips you have too, like this one, and I like the little added bonuses we're getting along the way as well.
You need to have those little things, but right,
Yeah.
because otherwise you just get frustrated, and especially with copy paste actions within Power Automate, which has improved a lot. So
yes,
again, shout out to the teams, but again, those useful tips. Okay, so should we receive an email? And I'm going to show you my history run. How are we in time, John? Do we have some time left?
Yeah, we're good. We're good. Yep.
Good. So this is a run, right? So that's why I lose a lot of compose actions, but you can also check always the outputs of every step. So this is very good for troubleshooting.
Okay.
So let me show you, because this was the basic, right? Who sent the email? So this is my test email address. Then I parse the HTML to text. So this was like the input with a lot of HTML formatting.
Yeah.
But I actually just want the plain text. So this is a very cool connector to use. And this is the output, just like we have in our email, but without all the HTML formatting. Okay.
Yeah.
I just put it in a compose just to check again from, hey, am I really sure that I'm getting the things that I want? Yes, I am, because you see input is the same as the output. Then I get the full string key separator with the 2 pipelines, and this is the basic. Let me just show you, because I also already showed this one. This is the array that we get with our 7 objects, right? The 6 plus the first is 7. And this is the initial variable, no input here. And this is the initialize variable where we just put the brackets. Don't forget these accolades for the initialization of the variable. And now the magic happens, because what it does in these 7 objects that are created here, it loops through every object within the array. So you can see it does all these things 7 times. So what does this mean from managing my flow? If I add another property within my email, I don't have to do anything to the flow. I just have to add it to my initialize array, add a 7th or 8th or 9th or 10th index property, and then it will loop an extra time in the same flow.
Nice.
No
That's
extra,
awesome.
no extra configuration within the flow needed.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So here you see, this is the output. This is what I'm going to look for in this one. Let me go you to the last one, the 7th, just to show you that it succeeded. And this is the one that I want to look for. And what it then does, it finds it. See, this was the text that I had in my email. And I add that property to my object. And I put it in a variable that I can use outside the apply to each loop. And then for the array, it's a little bit different, but it has the same result with the append to. You compose it, add the property, and then you have this new object added to your array.
Nice.
And so let me show you, because sometimes it's not very clear. I'm going to close the apply to each loop now, just to show you that I'm now outside the apply to each loop. And as a double check, again, I'd added some compose actions just to say, hey, how does my strings look like? Nothing changed. Okay. How does my output from my array look like? And then you see that this is the fundamental difference between the array and the object. The array now has 7 objects, but all with an added property of my value that I want. And the object is more cleaner, where it has just 1 object, but all these properties, 7 properties that I have defined.
Nice, nice. Very cool.
And then as the output, you can see that the body, it shows here. And so this, for example, this is an email that I sent with a summary of what the flow did. And it looks like this. This is the data from the array. And this is the data from the object. 2 different ways to get the same data. You can pick and choose whichever way you want.
And the beauty of this is that you could pipe this data anywhere now. Once you parse this out from the source, where it could be almost anything, you now could then put this data almost anywhere, right? Using Power Automate. And so that's beautiful. Yeah, I love it. Oh yeah, here we go. Now you're speaking my language, pulling up CDS. I love that. That's good. You could put this in CDS. You could put this in SharePoint. You could, if you really wanted to, you could put this in Excel. I don't recommend it, but you could. There's SQL, there's Oracle, there's a million different places. This is rad, man. I love the creativity to this. I think this is, I love your approach here, how you've defined your separators, how you've defined a data format, and then now you've made it so reusable so that like you can simply go make a quick change, 2 seconds to this flow, and it's going to update and do exactly what you need. This is really, really cool stuff, Django.
That's the key. Yes. Cool. Nice. Thanks.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So I asked Django ahead of time and he confirmed. So Django, you are going to actually share this flow in the Flow Community Cookbook, right?
Definitely.
Awesome. And he mentioned he has a blog, I think you said, where all of these variables and expressions and things you've shared out already.
Yes, we're going to share it. Of course, the link also within the video, I think.
Awesome.
But I have a very simple blog site, but don't expect too much of it. But it's a very simple blog site where I just post things like this when I found out something nice, or a colleague of mine has found something very clever.
Awesome.
It's mainly about the Power Platform. So here you can see it's a lot about Power Automate and Power Apps.
Yeah.
Those, as you can see, those are 2 my main focuses.
Awesome.
So yeah,
Okay,
sure, check it
cool.
out.
So, if you want to follow Django, if you want to check out all his goodness, go down in the description. We will have all his links, his blog, his Twitter, all of his best stuff. The link to this in the cookbook, and I mean, after this, I feel like Django, we gotta do another video. I gotta have you back. What do you think?
Sure, anytime.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, great. You guys know what to do. Click like, click subscribe, hit that little bell so that you don't miss another video from me. All right. Much love, everybody. Me and Django. We'll see you in the next one.
Peace.